So I'm not exactly sure what the problem is because to me, this is just common sense basics here that you don't put super voluminous, ginormous shorts atop toothpicks. It just seems like common sense. But here we are. Meghan Markle has graduated from giant man pants obsession to literal diaper shorts. Giant shorts. It's just, what is happening here? When Meghan Markle went to visit a Girl Scout camp to do, I guess it was maybe like a screening for the Girl Scouts movie Cookie Queens. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's what they were doing here. They were doing a screening for this camp of this movie that no one is going to go and see. And the Meg thought it would be a great idea to wear the largest shorts she could find, the most voluminous that she could find. Let's break down the exact problems with this because it goes beyond just wearing big shorts. And contrary to popular belief, it's not the shorts that are the problem. It's that they do not match Meghan's style concerns. All clothing has potential, and all bodies have a match of a style of short or a style of trouser or what have you that's going to complement your body the best and be the most balancing to your particular figure and proportions. And so it's really, really important and really the key to having outfits that look good and flatter you and look like they fit you well and things of that nature to just get really, really familiar and really, really honest with and have a better understanding of your particular proportions. And from there, you just balance them and you just stay away from things that literally have the exact same proportions as you because it's going to exaggerate them even further. So for Meghan Markle, we haven't gone over her particular style concerns in a while. So a quick recap, she has most dominantly a short torso. That's probably the most dominant element to her proportions overall above the rest. So that would be like her top priority to balance in her outfits. And so by having a short torso, it can also mean the other side of that coin is that her legs appear to be longer in proportion to the rest of her body or in proportion or relation to her torso. So having a short torso can be advantageous in a lot of ways because it can make you look a little bit taller. If you balance your proportions right, it can make you look a little bit taller because you have a little bit longer leg line, but not if you do it wrong. You have to do it right. You have to be careful with it. But Meghan's second style concern is probably that she has a lack of a well-defined waist, which complicates things a little bit. It does make it harder to style a short torso because it just makes sense. If you have a slightly shorter torso, then obviously you're not going to have much room to have a super well-defined, long waist in there to create like a dramatic hourglass effect. It's just like where you're gonna get that space. So she has a short and boxy torso, meaning she does not have that well-defined waist. That can be really helpful in styling just to give a less like blocky appearance to the torso. When you have a well-defined waist and you use it, it just, it tends to balance things out a little bit better. But Meghan can't get away with that because of that lack of well-defined waist. Where she does have her thinnest part of her waist is only like an inch or so. And that's very, very common amongst a lot of people, especially those with shorter torsos. But it just means that that's not enough room to create a well-defined waist. And it's also, for her, placed a little high. And that's why when she wears things that are really high-waisted, it looks like it's bra or boobs meet pants, just bam, right next to each other. Where her bust ends, her pants begin, and there's no breathing room for her torso or her waist at all. It just goes away. It's just pants all the way up to boobs. And that's just because the natural thinnest part of her waist is so short and so high that that's what happens when she tries to wear high-waisted things. The third most prominent style concern for Meghan is that she is an inverted triangle. Her widest point is her shoulder line. So that does create, a little bit of complication, because that means that her long, lanky limbs are all the more exaggerated by her body frame alone, because her shoulders are her widest point. If her hips were her widest point or something like that, then it might be a little bit different. Or if she was bustier or something, it might be a little bit different. Or if her legs weren't as thin, might be a little different. But it's not. This is where we are. This is the proportions she's working with. And instead of balancing them, she exaggerates them. Let's look at what this outfit does in the context of her proportions. We have a sort of sloppy V-neck with extra volume around the upper arm and bust area. There's just a lot of room in the armpits and stuff. This is a very relaxed top, which alone is not a bad thing at all. In fact, having something that's a little bit more of a relaxed fit and a softer texture for Meghan, in theory, would soften her wider shoulder line and camouflage her shorter, boxier torso. It would be fine. And it's in a darker shade, being this sort of coffee shade, because a darker top is not going to exaggerate her wider shoulder line or make her look top heavy. In fact, having a darker top and white bottoms is actually a good approach for Meghan Markle, because it adds a little bit of visual weight to her lower half when she wears lighter trousers or lighter bottoms with a darker top. It adds visual weight to her thinner, lankier, long legs and allows her broader shoulder line and her boxier torso to not become the focus and sort of fade in comparison to the highlight that is those lighter bottoms. The problem here, the pitfall here, is the exact style of short that she chose. These voluminous pleated front shorts. What these are doing is they're hitting her too high, so they're eating up some of her torso length. They have a huge rise, so they look baggy and saggy in the crotch area and in the buttocks area. I mean, there's no way around it. These look frumpy around there. And because she has a boxier torso, adding pleats there, even though she's thin, she's quite thin at the moment, adding visual weight via pleats to her belly area is the exact opposite that she needs. She benefits from adding a little bit of visual weight to her hip line to balance her shoulder line, but she already has the darker color going for her. So she didn't need to try to add volume to the hip line. And really, quite frankly, you can't add volume to the hip line in trousers or shorts. You can in dresses and skirts, something more A-line, but in trousers and in shorts, the way they add volume there is pleats, and they are always in the front on the lower belly. And so since she doesn't have a well-defined waist and she has that boxier torso, that's just making her look like chubbier there, basically. It's making her look like she has added weight to her lower belly area where she doesn't need any added weight. It's just drawing the eye right there to the frumpy crotch, the pleats, making her legs look all the more exaggeratedly thin. It literally turns her proportions and amplifies them, magnifies them. The volume on the shirt and the volume in the shorts combined means she's exaggerating her torso and upper half with volume in both places. There's no break from the volume here, especially because she did a French tuck. She didn't do like a complete tuck where there's blousing going on. So she has completely exaggerated her upper body boxiness and added weight to the belly area and sagged up and frumped up the crotch region. And then she just has her bare, super skinny, twiggy, bony legs poking out with these heavy, dark brown loafers. None of this is working. The only thing I think works is the ponytail. I think that was perfectly cash for the occasion. I think the top would be perfectly fine if she would have just paired it up with some regular, relaxed jeans. Some just regular jeans, something like this, not full boyfriend, but like almost where it's straight leg, a little bit relaxed. It wouldn't look like she's trying to wear skinny jeans and exaggerate her skinny legs. It would just be balanced. I also think this could have worked with like capris or something, but I'm going to show you that in a second. Let's try to fix this outfit real quick, shall we? I pulled out some editing here to try to fix this terrible outfit. One of the big problems, like I said, is just the amount of volume in the shorts. It's just making her legs look more skinny, more twiggy, more out of proportion to everything else, and those pleats are only making it worse. So the first edit I did was reduce the volume of the shorts. And when I do these edits, I'm not trying to completely change the outfit. I'm trying to see, could we salvage this outfit since this is what she chose? Is there a better way? If this is what she was really inspired to wear, could it work somehow? But oftentimes, like with the notorious inverted nipple red dress, we end up with a completely different dress sometimes. But the first thing we did was we reduced the volume of the shorts. And obviously this helps a little bit, but they're still so tall. In fact, reducing the volume of the shorts, you can see it helps the legs a little bit. And it helps the weight, the visual weight right here in the lower belly. It helps her look more slender, more, true to her figure, her thin frame. But it exaggerates that short torso problem. It looks like these pants are just eating her body alive. But luckily we got rid of the frumpy crotch. But obviously we can't leave the rise where it's at. So the next thing we need to do is something about the rise of these trousers, of these shorts. But in reality, that's one of the hardest things to actually change. Like if you were to pay a tailor to make all of your clothes more custom to your body, changing the rise of pants or trousers or shorts is almost impossible. It's really, really hard to do because the entire waistband structure, the pant pockets, all of those things are not something you can really change. You can hem things, stuff like that, but the general rise is really hard. So it's important to buy a rise that works for you, and then you can have the rest tailored. But in this case, the best solution would be to not be French tucking the top. If this top had had a banded hem, something like this, where it tightens itself up sort of at the bottom, then you don't need to tuck it at all. So in this case, it would hide the rise of the shorts and it would help a little bit. It's obviously not solving the problem. She still looks really boxy and she still looks pretty top heavy, but it helps a little bit to not have the rise becoming such a focal point, eating up all of her torso like in this. Like this just looks so ridiculously silly. So when we pull the shirt out and have some sort of a banded hemline, you can't just have it flapping in the wind. You can't just have it untucked and just dangling, hanging there loosely. It would have to be a banded hem, but that is something that some tailors can fix for you. But I personally am still not satisfied with this. This still looks really top heavy to me. So the next edit I did was to try a totally different type of pant altogether. These are capri trousers or just above the ankle trousers. And as you can see, they are not super skinny, slim fit the way Meghan has worn in the past. These are regular, straight, or slightly tapered leg. And this looks way more balanced. As you can see here, it completely balances out the top-heavy nature. I mean, like, she still has a lot. The shirt is looking a little heavy, let's be honest. But it's, I think, an improvement from the shorts. And at an evening event, even though it's summertime and it's quite hot, I still think that this is a better option. And she was in Ojai, I believe, and that's a little bit further north from Montecito and LA. And so it's a little bit cooler the farther north you go, obviously. And so this is going to be a completely weather or temperature appropriate option for this occasion. This would have been just fine, and it's a lot more balancing, but we still have the loafers that we need to deal with. At the bottom of the outfit here, you can see those loafers are just really, really dark and heavy. So if she had switched to like brown loafers, it would have been an improvement. Overall, I still think an easier fix would have been to just wear some jeans. This was a little rough. If she really wanted to show the legs, then a skirt or a skirt that's not so voluminous would have been a fine option. When you have twiggier legs, or really thin legs, it is tricky. It can be very tricky because, they can just look too thin no matter what you do for your shorts or your dresses or your skirts or things like that. So the only other way to mitigate that is to change the hemline. When you hem your shorts or trousers or capris or skirts or anything to be at a thicker point of your leg, for example, around the calf, it's going to look more balancing if you have very thin limbs like Meghan does, just skinny, twiggy, bony legs. Hemming them at the calf is a good option to kind of create the illusion of better balance there. But let's move on now to her MasterChef appearance, because this outfit has been bothering me. It's not that the all black or the skirt and blouse combo was all wrong for this occasion. In fact, I think that it was an okay concept as a starting point. The problem is that she didn't refine it at all. She just was like, a blouse and a midi skirt, bada bing, bada boom. It's classic, it's done. But you've got to refine these things. And as you can see, the other judges were dressed in lighter colors. So for the season, it didn't really vibe. And I know like this is in Australia, so it's not like it's their summer, but these ladies are wearing floral style outfits, you know, this pink with the bows and the black trim, this white with the floral. They're both in tank tops. These other ladies are, the other judges on the show. So this to me reads early spring. That's what this reads to me outfit-wise. And Meghan is in full-blown fall winter style vibe with her long sleeves, her black monochrome outfit. It just looks heavier compared to these ladies. It looks out of place next to these ladies. Additionally, the proportions are once again a little bit off with the blouse and the tight midi skirt. That midi skirt was tight, and so it just exaggerated that inverted triangle a little bit. Additionally, the sleeves of the blouse in general is a little ill-fitting, but look at the sleeves. They're eating her hands. They're coming all the way to here on her hands. And that is just unprofessional, especially around food. And on a show like this, it just looks messy as all get out. It looks terrible. It's just the worst. It really, really is, especially with food. When you're eating and you're reaching around a plate or perhaps reaching forward for like a drink or something like that, your sleeves, if they are hanging down and loose like that, are going to get in the food. It's just gross. And so on a show where one of the main things that you're doing is eating food and tasting the food, this looks bad and impractical, and it was a bad choice. It also just looks a little too big and messy up here, just kind of sloppy. It's not got enough structure or well-fitting sort of tailored vibe to work for Meghan for this occasion, for this particular gig. If you've been watching fashion editions here for a while, especially ones on Meghan Markle, most of the ones on like Catherine, Princess of Wales, or the red carpet ones have moved over to the second channel, which I'll link for you at the end of today's video. But if you've been watching these on Meghan, you know I have said 1,000 times that softer, flowier fabrics balance her boxier torso, her broader shoulder line, her sort of angular frame, because she's not somebody with a soft, curvaceous bod. So this softer fabric of the blouse is the right choice, but you have to refine it. The way the collar's just kind of sloppy doesn't work here. She needed something that still had a firm enough structure to the collar that it stayed in place and looked consistent across every step and every minute of that show. But it didn't. In some frames and some pictures, it was over here. In others, it was over here. Some of them, it was like this. Some of them, it was more closed. Some of them, one was up and one was out and things like that. And that inconsistency just bothers me in TV and movies so much. I can't even. I notice every time someone's outfit or hair is a little bit different or their position is different between cuts, and editing, I think, should do a better job of those things. But here we had Meghan Markle's shirt as the problem, the culprit here. It was too floppy around here. And it also looked too ill-fitting around the shoulders and armpits. And that could have been fixed with a tailor to make it fit a little bit better. And then even with the soft fabric, it wouldn't have had as much wiggle room to migrate around her body throughout the show. It even sometimes looked like it was pulled up more, and other times like pulled down more, like she had freshly just yanked it down. So it was just too messy overall. Who's surprised at that? Once again, a tailor could have easily fixed the sleeves to have a tight cuff that controlled the volume and stopped it from eating your hands and flopping all over plates of food. But in terms of refining the outfit to improve it for this occasion, I think changing the skirt by removing the slit and changing it to a lighter color and changing the top to something that would photograph better would have made a lot more sense. Something like this is a little bit more polished and professional without the slit, which also helps the skirt stay better. With a slit, there's going to be more movement and inconsistency in how it looks from frame to frame. Without a slit, it's going to look a little bit less messy, and it's not going to ride up and move around quite as much, so it's going to photograph nicer. And with a lighter color palette, she would have fit in with the season in which it was aired and with the other judges a lot better here. This top in this softer pink shade, as you can see, is a 3/4 length sleeve, so it's not going to get messy where she likes to shove sleeves up, but it's also not going to get in the way of the job. And you can see the collar also on this, and the fit of this is overall so much better, and it's going to stay still. It's going to look more professional, more clean, more precise, just more better. This is just going to look a lot better for Meghan here. But we couldn't leave the skirt in black because that would create too much of an imbalance for her proportions. That would have exaggerated the thinner hip line, the wider shoulder line if we would have kept the skirt black. So I switched the skirt to cream, switched the high heels to nude, and gave her this style of a V-neck, just like knit top that would feel a little bit lighter and photograph a little better. She could have gotten away with a blouse that was more tailored and more carefully done, but this was easier for me to edit, to be honest, than try to change a blouse. The only other thing is that I don't think Meghan would opt for this soft pink, and it might look a little too matchy-matchy with the other judges. So something like an emerald green that we know it looks really vibrant on Meghan. It brings out her skin tone nicely and is a color that we know she allegedly likes to wear or allegedly likes and has worn previously. I think that this outfit would have worked a lot better for her than what she wore. And at least that it doesn't have giant man pants, you know? At least we are moving away from those to an extent, but not completely, because that's exactly what she wore to the Cookie Queens movie premiere when she did the Q&A. Let's take a look at this mess. So this was super wrinkly, super oversized, so messy. It was very overwhelming to her. She just looked messy here. One of the biggest problems with this was the dramatic wide leg trousers just looked a little bit silly. She clearly, I think she tried to hem these herself because it has such a wide hem at the bottom. It looks like she just folded it up and sewed it down. If she had someone else hem it for her, I think they could have done a little bit better job. Having a wide hem, though, kind of makes sense for wider leg trousers. It helps to balance it a little better, but still in this light white shade, it was just very eye-catching and distracting. I do appreciate that these were not puddling up on the floor, though. At least we've made that amount of progress. The downsides, though, of this outfit is that it exaggerated her broader shoulder line, her boxier, wider torso. It just made her top half look ginormous, and it has this drop crotch. It's super messy, super wrinkly, the wrong choice when you're going to be sitting down doing a Q&A or things like that, or watching the Cookie Queens movie and then doing pictures afterwards. You just look messy. Absolutely super messy. And why is she so allergic to color? I don't understand it. If you're going to do a boyfriend style blazer, I always think it looks super overwhelming and adds to the messy vibe if your hair is down like this. If she had done a ponytail or even just had her hair back and away, it would have looked a lot better than this, where it's just kind of messy and hanging down and overwhelming and further adding visual weight to that shoulder line where she's wearing a boyfriend style blazer where the shoulder pads and whatnot are widening her shoulder line even further. The shirt underneath looks too thin, too light. You can see her bra through it, and it looks cheap compared to everything else. The whites don't match. None of these whites match. All three are different whites. And then the trousers, you can see have a black button. The jacket has white buttons, and those are all right next to each other. So that is another mistake. That's like a really subtle detail that tends to make the outfit look incongruous altogether, and just like they don't vibe, they don't match well enough. The one thing that I think is a good positive here is that the blazer is a longer style, which seems counterintuitive, but it actually lengthens her torso a little bit. The problem is that it doesn't define her waist at all, and I know she doesn't have much waist definition underneath, but look at what we can do here with just a little bit of editing, okay? So first, we're going to reduce the volume of the trousers just a tad. She loves wide legs. She loves giant man pants. But just with a slightly less dramatic amount of volume, it's miles better than where we started. This does not have a frumpy drop crotch with tons of extra room. The rise looks a little bit more controlled, and the wrinkles are a little bit more tamed because this is a little bit more of a lighter blend. That's not going to wrinkle as badly as what I'm assuming was some sort of linen in the original. Then if we add just a little pop of color and a V-neck instead for her undershirt, not only does it distract away from the fact that the trousers and the blazer don't match perfectly in their whites, when you add a third mismatch white, that's even worse in terms of matching. It's just impossible to ignore, and it draws attention to the fact that none of your whites match. But if you do one color and you have two that almost match, you can kind of get away with it and trick the eye into not focusing on the fact that these whites are all three different shades. You know what I mean? And by having a V-neck, she opens up this area a little bit. It helps the blazer feel a little less overwhelming. And the weight of this shirt is heavy enough to hide her bra and not look so cheap underneath. That original white t-shirt just looks super duper cheap. Now, if we change this blazer, we keep the length the same because it elongates her torso some and creates a little bit better proportion balance, but we tailor it to have just a little bit of a faux waist definition. Just make the blazer nip in a tiny bit at the waist and then switch it to a 3/4 length sleeve so she can't shove them up and make all this extra visual noise and weight right here at her torso. Then this looks so much better. This looks professional. It looks polished. She wants this light, airy sort of vibe that she thinks is giving her a chic but relaxed look. It doesn't, because she's so messy and wears these outfits in such a messy way, and they fight against her proportions. It always comes out looking terrible. But with just a little bit more control to the volume and a little bit more attention to the tailoring, it looks a lot better, and she can still keep that sort of Hammond vibe that she seems drawn to. Alternatively, she could have forgone the blazer altogether and just gone for a regular blouse, fully tucked in, with the sleeves nicely gathered at the elbow. Here, though, we would definitely need to add a belt to aid in the polish of the outfit overall. And here is a glimpse at what this could have been had she worn closed-toe shoes and some regular straight-leg trousers and this blouse. Without the blazer, this would have looked perfectly fine. And it would have been a lot more polished. I still think that maybe her hair up or in a ponytail might have been a nice alternative to the typical way that she likes to wear it down in the loose waves. But overall, this collection of edits gets along a lot better with her body type, with her style concerns. It complements her natural features better, and it allows the clothes to provide her balance rather than exaggerate or fight against her proportions. What do you guys think of these edits? Do you think they made some improvements? Leave it in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a very happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye.